Are you planning to develop next generation reference version as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we want to push the limits of what's possible from loudspeakers. And so there's no doubt that when you do sort of cost no object products, that's a lot of fun and we all enjoy that process, but there's trickle down that happens and that technology works its way down through the rest of the line. So that's absolutely what we're
I wonder how
shooting.
much technology is from the reference line for Peak series.
You know, we learned things in doing the peaks, quite honestly, that are eventually going to find its way into the rest of the line. So that's what's kind of fun about this. Matthew and his team do very sophisticated computer modeling, and they'll model different rooms. They'll model every aspect of the loudspeaker design. They'll model different amplifiers. And those things that they do inform the decisions about how to make a product that maybe works better in typical environments. So reference speakers, they're going to work really well in a dedicated music room or a room that's got treatment and the best electronics and the best cables and careful setup. What we tried to do with Peaks is get performance like that as much as possible, but in real world living rooms.
So you simulate 300 different rooms.
Yeah, exactly. And rooms with problems, not just, here's a rectangular room that's good dimensions, rooms that have strange aspects of them. And I'm not saying you can fix those problems with your speaker design, but when you understand those problems, you can make decisions about the way you design the speaker that make it more forgiving. So sonically, when you listen to these, they work in a way where the whole family gets to enjoy it. This wide dispersion that you get with the Peak series is really unique.
So more people can approach Peak series than...
And it's also, really easier to drive, and so you can have less expensive, less sophisticated electronics and get great results. That was a big part of what we tried to do. It doesn't do you a lot of good if you reduce the cost of the speakers, but you still have to have $100,000 in electronics to drive them. You kind of miss the mark. So we modeled all these different amplifiers at much lower price points, tube amplifiers, small, low power, high power, everything.
Resonance-wise, how stiff is it, the cabinet?
Yeah, I mean, if you knock your finger on a reference cabinet or Peaks cabinet, it's a very similar sound, in fact, which is dead. And so what we are believers in is having the cabinet not have a sound of its own. I mean, it's the whole philosophy of the speaker to pay tribute to the recording, the artist, the mixing engineer, the recording engineer. They created something that they're proud of, and we think it's our responsibility to play that back faithfully. So if you have a cabinet that's making its own sound, dancing along to the tune, that's missing the mark again. And so our philosophy is to make sure that the bracing is really solid so that the speaker doesn't have certain frequencies that are resonant. We have no parallel surfaces in the Peaks either, and so you don't build up a certain energy band that creates a resonance. And basically, the cabinet just disappears sonically, and that's the goal that we have. That's part of the fun with the illusion of being there and feeling like you're there in the recording. The speaker has to disappear, and if you have a cabinet that is sort of making a sound of its own, it doesn't work.
So, is the placement still important with the speakers?
What's been kind of fun for me is you set up a pair of Peak speakers and you almost drop them in place and they sound amazing, and you think, wow, I'm so good. I set these up so perfectly, and they sound great. So, but then you put a little more work into it, and you work on them and dial them in, and you just keep making them better and better and better. But it's almost hard to get bad sound from the Peak speakers. They're really easy to set up. There's a whole bunch of tricks, and I can't get into all those about the way that we designed it. But
I really want to know.
So do our competitors, probably. So.
Right. So you have Vantage Live. That's new because YG is famous for the passive speakers. But that's an active speakers. So how did you decide to get into active speaker?
YG is going to continue to make passive speakers. We're not going to shift to become an active speaker company. But we see a tremendous opportunity for people who love music and want to have good music in their home, but maybe don't want to have all of the components that you need to buy to do that. And so a larger segment of people out there that love music, have the financial means to buy something nice and appreciate it, but they don't want to make all those decisions about which digital to analog converter, which cables, Some people just don't want to have all those boxes, and so that's part of it. And so in the past, maybe you would call that sort of a lifestyle product if it was an active speaker where you just have a pair of powered speakers and the electronics kind of disappear. But those products in the past, in my opinion, have kind of let people down. They haven't been audiophile quality in general. And in my opinion, nobody has achieved sonically what we achieved with Bel Canto in the Vantage Live. So this was a collaboration of Cambridge Acoustic Sciences doing DSP work and crossover design. Bel Canto, tremendous experience with the electronic side of things. They know what a good amplifier sounds like. They know how to coax that out of it. They designed a wonderful controller that's very flexible, equalization capabilities within that. And so you take YG's engineering capability and precision manufacturing and drivers and the cabinet of a speaker that already existed, the Vantage. That's where we started. And then we worked together with these two other companies, really merged into one partnership. And we've just had a lot of fun working with Bel Canto, great people, and we could not have done it. I don't think there is a company probably that could have done it on their own because each element of it could do the thing that they're best at. So that's just a lot of fun. And Vantage Live is a designer's dream, quite honestly, because you have all aspects under your control. You know the driver that you're trying to control. You know the cabinet. And when you know all the aspects of it, that gives you a tremendous benefit. And then when there's no passive crossover, it's much more efficient, and you take those amplifier circuits and drive them right to the drivers themselves. There's an immediacy, a dynamic. And then if you do things right in the crossover, maintain perfect phase, and you know what you're doing with amplifier design, there's some real advantages to this. And so you can get performance from the active system for far less money than a passive system with all the electronics. Because, you know, you think about it, you have to pay for each of those boxes, those cabinets, those power supplies. And if you can properly integrate it into a speaker and you're not trying to make it work with lots of other things, that's a tremendous benefit.
I feel that a lot of audiophiles are resistant to active speakers. How do you pass that hurdle?
Well, we have to create new audiophiles, and audiophiles that maybe don't want to be in the hobby of making those choices like you and I liked. I like to listen to what different things do.
Maybe we're older generations.
Yeah, maybe. But I think that as soon as they listen to it, they get it. I'm as much of an audiophile as you get. And I already have, my wife is fine with me having all of the components and the speakers way out in the room and big thick cables. But the itch that I have for great sound is scratched by the Vantage Live. That is no compromise sonically. I love the sound of it. And so if someone gives it a chance and listens to it, they'll get there. But I think it's a little more oriented toward people who just don't want to have the hobby of making all those choices. Or maybe they're a little intimidated going into a high-end audio shop and don't know what questions to ask. And they're not used to that, not knowing what to ask. You know, we have our own language in this business and all that. It's complicated.
But still, Vantage Live is expensive in a way, isn't it?
Sure. Well, because our idea was not to come out with something that was, to start out with something that was inexpensive. The idea was to prove our point, which is there's this whole convenience aspect, but then you can do performance and convenience at the same time. That's unique.
To me, it seems like in Munich, something new will come up.
Oh, we're always coming out with new stuff, so come and visit. Yeah, we're going to have a great big room at Munich again this year, and we're going to show some fun new things and bring a big team of people. It's going to be a lot of fun.